In this video, I will try to explain and demonstrate how Run and RunOnce registry keys works in Windows. I'm starting this video from my GitHub page, and that's because there are a few bits of information here that I will be using for this video. And I will leave the URL in the description down below. And the main reason why we care about Run and RunOnce is that it allows us to run applications, commands, and scripts after a successful user logon. And as you can see here, we have 4 locations where you can find the registry keys. 2 of them are under the current user and other 2 are under the local machine. And the functionality is a bit different depending on the location, and I will try to demonstrate the differences in this video. But first, let's talk about the differences between Run and RunOnce. And I will start by explaining how Run registry key works first, and for that I have this small diagram right here. So everything starts when the user signs in to the computer, and this is the trigger for Run and RunOnce. So after a successful sign-in, the computer loads explorer.exe and only then it runs the values under the run key. And this will happen again and again during every user sign-in on that computer until somebody deletes the entries under the run key. And this part right here, the computer loads explorer.exe, it's not that important for this video, but this part will be very important for the future videos. Well, we use Run and RunOnce with other Windows functionalities. And now let's go over how RunOnce works, and for that I have this diagram right here. So the trigger is the same, it's the successful sign-in to the computer. Next, the computer loads explorer.exe, and the next step that happens is that the computer deletes the entries under the RunOnce key. And only then the computer runs the values under the RunOnce key from memory. So that means that if anything bad happens between this step and this step, that the computer will delete the entries and the programs or scripts that we have under our RunOnce key will not execute. So you need to keep that in mind. And also, as you can see here, this process happens only once. And this is the biggest difference between Run and RunOnce, is that Run will keep executing the values under the run key until somebody deletes the entries, and RunOnce will delete the entries itself, and the process will not happen again. If we want to run something once more, we need to create new registry entries under the RunOnce key. And now let's discuss the differences between the keys that are located under the local machine and the keys that are located under the current user. And let's start with the current user, because in my opinion this is a more complicated one, and that's because each user on the computer has his own personal current user registry hive. And that means that if we want to use RunOnce or run under the current user for all the users, we need to create the entries for each user. And also the current user hive is loaded during the user's logon process. And that makes it a bit complicated when we're trying to use some type of automation tool and access those registries. But there are tools that make it a bit more simple, like group policy or another registry functionality called active setup that I will be covering in the future videos. And this topic is a bit hard for me to explain, but later I will be performing few demonstrations that should make everything more clear and more understandable. But long story short is that if we want to run something for all the users on the computer using Run and RunOnce registry keys that are located under the current user, we need to create entries in the registry for each user. And now let's talk about the registry keys that are under the local machine. So using Run is pretty simple and convenient because we can create a single registry entry in our registry under the local machine, and that software or script will run for all the users on the computer during the logon process. So in most cases, it's better to choose the run that's located under the local machine because, like I said, it requires only one registry entry instead of creating registry entries under the current user. In that case, we would need to create registry entries for each user on that computer. So it's very convenient. And for the RunOnce, it's a bit more complicated because a RunOnce under the local machine will run once for a single user, and that user also needs to be in the administrators group. Also, the process that will be started by RunOnce under the local machine will be with elevated permissions. That means that that process can make system-wide changes on the computer. And in some cases, like automated Windows images or unattended Windows installations, this feature is very useful. And I will use it a lot in the future videos. And also I'm done explaining. Now we can start playing around with our registry keys. And for that I will go to my VMware workstation where I have a virtual machine prepared. And let's start with something simple. Let's begin by opening Notepad using Run and RunOnce registry keys that are under the current user. So for that I will go to my start menu. I will type regedit, open the registry editor, and I will click Run as administrator. I will click yes here. Now we need to go to the current user, software, Microsoft, scroll down a bit, and then Windows, current version, and somewhere here we find our Run and RunOnce registry keys. And now we need to create our registry entries, and for that I will right click on the Run key, go to New, and then create a string value. First step that we need to do is to name our entry, and in this case the name doesn't matter. I can name it f underscore notepad underscore run, for example, and after it has the name we need to provide the value, and for the value we need to provide whatever we want to run. So in our case, in this case, it's notepad.exe. And now let's do the same for run once, because we're all done here. So I will right click on run once, go to new, and string value. This time I will name it run once notepad. Once again we need to provide the value, and the value is notepad.exe. So now we have two entries. One is under the run once, and other one is under the run. And both of them are runs notepad. So now I can close my registry editor, and I will sign out from my admin user. And now I will sign in back to my virtual machine. The Explorer has been loaded, and now we have two instances of Notepad running. One of them is from run, and other one is from the run once registry key. And let's go back to registry editor. I will type regedit and run as administrator. And now we're currently under the run once key, and as you can see here, it's empty. Like I said, the entry is deleted before running the process, so it deleted the registry entry and then it started Notepad for us. And if we go to the run, we see that we still have our entry here. So the entry from the run will keep on running until we delete the key. For example, if I turn everything off again and then sign out, and then let's sign back in. And this time we only have one instance of Notepad running. And now let's do something a bit more complicated and run cmd commands. For that I will go back to my GitHub page. And here we have few snippets that we will be running in this video. And here I'm using regadd command to create few registry entries. Both of them are under the current user hive. One is creating an entry under the run once key, and other one is creating an entry under the run key. Then for the value we're providing cmdc is to start the command line. We're using command echo to output some text. And then I'm using command whoami. This will show us under what user the command line is running. And then I'm using command pause to pause the command line so it doesn't close and we can see the output. I will copy both of these lines. And I will go back to my virtual machine. Then I will go to start menu, type cmd, and I will click on run as administrator. And then I will paste in the lines. And as you can see, both operations completed successfully. So now let's go to the start menu once more, type regedit to open the registry editor, and let's see what happened. So now under the run key we have two entries. One is to open Notepad, another one is to run cmd. And as you can see, like I said, we're running cmdc, then echo command, then command whoami, and pause command. And now for run once, we have similar value here. It's just that the text is a bit different, but it's the same. So now we have one entry under the run once and 2 entries under the run. So let's close everything and sign out and sign back in. We have our notepad and we have our 2 command lines. And here we see that the top one is running from run once and the bottom one is running from run registry key. And both of them are running under the user admin. Basically, this is the user that I have here. And that's great because that means that we can use run once or run to run some commands to modify the user profile or install software that installs under the user account. Because software like that, in some cases, is very hard to deploy and some deployment tools doesn't even support that. So for my next demonstration, I will be installing Brave Browser because Brave Browser is a type of software that installs under the user account and doesn't need any administrative privileges to install. And like I mentioned before, most of the deployment tools doesn't support this type of software, but we can use run once registry keys to deploy the software. And for that, I will go back to my GitHub page. And here I have a download link for the Brave browser. I'll click on it and it brings us to the Brave browser GitHub page. Now I will click on the release here. That brings us to the download page. And here we can find many setup packages for Brave browser, but I'm looking for a standalone silent setup. It's this one right here. I will click on it and it should start downloading. Now I'll go to my downloads folder. And here we have the executable. I will right click on the file, I will copy it, and then I will move it to my desktop in my virtual machine. And then I will move the file from my desktop to the C drive. And once again, I will go back to my GitHub page. And here I have another command. And once again, I'm using regat command to create a registry entry for run once in current user Hive. And for the value, we're running cmdc and echo command, and we're outputting some text. And in this case, it will output installing software, and we're running a second command, cmdc, and we're running the executable. And this executable is a fully silent installation of Brave browser, so we don't need any silent switches. So I will copy this command right here, and then I will go back to my virtual machine, open a new command line, run it as administrator, yes, paste in the command and press enter. And we see that the operation was successful. If we go back to our registry editor and check our run once key, we can see the command here. So during the logon process, it should start a CMD window. It will output installing software, and we will be able to see that window until Brave browser is installed. So now let's close everything. And sign out. And now let's sign back in. We have our window that is saying installing software. So Brave browser should appear soon. So the window disappeared after the installation was done, and we have our Brave browser icon on our desktop. I will try to open it, and it seems to be working just fine. And if I right click on the file, go to open file location, we can see that all the necessary files for Brave browser are located under my user account. So as you can see here, run once key can be quite useful when installing this type of software, but it's even more useful when we want to uninstall software like this. And I will explain why, but first let's go to the registry. So I'll go to start, type regedit, and run as administrator, and yes. Once more, we want to go to the current user, software, Microsoft Windows, current version. But instead of run once, we need to search for uninstall key that we have here. I will expand it. And here we have Brave software, Brave browser. And here we can find the uninstall string. An uninstall string is a command that we want to run if we want to uninstall the software from the command line. As you can see, it's located under my user profile, but this is not the worst part. The worst part is that it has a version number. And this means that if we have multiple users on the computer with Brave browser installed, they might have different versions. In that case, the uninstall string will be different for each user. So once more, we can use run once to execute a script during the logon that will check the registry for the correct value and execute the uninstall string. So once more, let's go back to the GitHub page. And here I have another regadd command. Once again, I'm creating a registry entry in the current user hive for the run once key. And for the value, we're executing echo command. It will give us text removing software, and we will be able to see this text until Brave browser is successfully removed. Next, we're running PowerShell, and PowerShell will run this code snippet that I have here that I managed to put into a single line. That means that we don't need to deal with the execution policy. And what's happening here is that PowerShell will grab the uninstall string from Brave software, Brave browser key. It's the necessary command that we need to start the uninstall process, and also it will add an additional parameter that I have here that will make the uninstall process fully silent. So let's copy this line here, go back to the virtual machine, go to start, let's open another CMD window and run as administrator. And I will paste in the command and press enter. Once again, we see that the operation was successful. We can close this window right here, and let's check our run once key. And as you can see, we have our remove Brave entry. If I click on it, we can see all the commands that will be running. So let's close everything and sign out once again. Let's sign back in. We can see our command line window for removing software, and it disappeared quickly. And as you can see, we no longer have the Brave browser icon on our desktop. And that's it for installing and uninstalling software by using the run once key. Let's go back to the GitHub page. And the last step is to demonstrate the functionality for the keys under the local machine. And here, once again, I'm using the regadd command to create the registry entries. But this time, we're creating the registry entries in the local machine hive. We're creating one entry for run once key and another entry for the run key. And for the values, we're executing echo command that will give us some text depending from which key the command is running. Then we're executing command who am I. This will tell us under what user the command is running, and then it will pause the command line so that we can see all the output. So I will copy both of these lines and go back to my virtual machine, open another command line, run it as administrator, and paste in the commands and press enter. We see that both operations have been completed successfully. And like I mentioned before, the keys that are under the local machine are a bit different. And to demonstrate that, I will be creating a new user. So for that, I will open the MMC console. I will go to File, Add or Remove the snap-in. Then I will select the snap-in local users and groups, click Add, Finish, and OK. And here we can see our local users and our groups. So I will create a new user. I will name him John. I will remove this box here and I will select password never expires. And I will create John account. If I click on John and select member of, we can see that he belongs only in the users group. And if I select my current user that I have and select member of, we can see that he belongs to users group and also the administrators group. And this is important because, like I mentioned before, the run once key in the local machine hive works only for the users that are in the administrators group. So now let's close all the windows. And sign out from my admin account. And now I will sign back in, but this time I will be signing in to the John user. And here we see that we only have a single instance of CMD running. It was executed from the local machine hive run key, and it is running under the John user. And the value from the run once key didn't execute, and that's because John is not part of administrators group. So now let's sign out from the John user and go back to the admin account. And it is getting a bit messy here, so let me organize a bit. This is the old entry that is running from the current user. Let's maybe close it. We can close the notepad. This one is from the run once, and this is from run. So now that we are back to the user that is in the administrators group, both values from run and run once keys executed for us. Because like I said, run once under the local machine works only for the accounts that are in the administrators group. Also, as you can see here, the windows are a bit different, but we can see bigger differences if I open the task manager, go to details, and let me add another column. And we're looking for a column named elevated right here. Also, we can select this command line. And now let's make the window a bit bigger. I will move elevated here, and I will move the command line here. And now let's find our CMD. And as you can see here, we have the commands that we had in our registry keys. And we have the two instances of CMD. And this one that was running from the local machine run once key is elevated. And this is very important because that means that we can make system-wide changes by using the run once key that is in the local machine hive. And that's it for this video. In the future videos about registry, I will be talking about functionality of the active setup, and we will be combining active setup with run once keys because this combination can be very useful. Like and subscribe if you want to see that, and see you in the next one.